again, my friends. It's been a while. This is my first vlog for the new year 2022, and today I'm going to make bread filled with ground beef, and I'm going to make it in two different styles. I'm going to make it tearing style and meatloaf style, Jamaican meatloaf style. It's good to be back on the camera again, and I hope you enjoy this recipe, and I hope you try it. And let me know in the comment section if you do and how it turns out. Alright guys, so for the ingredients for the meatloaf, Jamaican style meatloaf that is, these are the different seasonings that I'm going to use to season up the ground beef, and I made sure to get the leanest type of ground beef I could find. So we have sweet peppers, tomato, half a tomato, a third of a large onion, 3 what you call these, sprigs of scallion, and some garlic. You know, you can use your own discretion and add as much garlic as you want, and a piece of ginger, of course. And you know we're not going to leave out the scotch bonnet pepper. So that's the for the filling. And for the dough, I bought just some generic active dry yeast and some all-purpose flour, unbleached. For some reason I prefer to see unbleached on the flour. For some reason, I'm not sure why. And just regular cane sugar, and of course we're going to add our salt to taste, and some powdered seasoning, which you'll see when I'm actually seasoning up the meat. Alright, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start cutting up the seasoning. It doesn't even matter which one you start on first. I'm gonna go ahead and start on my scallion. So all of these are washed and cleaned up already. So, and then after I cut these up, I'm actually going to put them in the blender and kind of blend them out some more before adding them to the meat. But you know, just so I don't have to cut them too small, because I'm going to blend them again, just so you don't have large pieces of seasoning, you know, encounter those while you're eating your savory snack, I want to call it. Now those people who know about tearing and coffeering and those kind of pastries, you'll see what I'm talking about when I shape out the extra water there. When I shape out the pastry, you'll see. Alright. Like I said, I don't have to cut them too small because I'm going to blend them again. See this pepper? I'm not going to cut up the seeds in it because I don't want it to be overly hot. You know what I mean? Enough pepper, but not too much. Alright. So the seasoning is ready for the blender right now. I have this old pepper seed here. I'm going to put it aside for now and see how it goes. Maybe I'll add it later. Alright, so this is ready now to go into the blender. Okay, so we're ready to process the seasoning. All I did was to put a little water to about this level, add the seasoning, put the seasoning into the blender, and let's see how this works. Alright, that's good enough. And I'm going to add this to the beef right here. And just mix it around and let it sit there and marinate for a while, and then I'll work on the dough. So I'll see you after. Well, let's add this first. Got a lot of seasoning. Look like a lot of seasoning, but it's gonna cook for a while and make a nice filling for the meatloaves. All right. So let's go ahead and try to mix that out. Break that up and mix it out really well. Let it marinate, and then I'm going to put it to cook. So this is just the ground beef with the blended seasoning. There. Ground beef with the blended seasoning. And of course I'm going to add some powdered seasoning as well, and some salt to taste. See, there's gonna be a nice meatloaf season. Now the Jamaican meatloaf is something like the patties, but only it's not a pastry out. It's not a pastry outer part. It's the outer part is not made of pastry, it's made of bread, it's made of dough. But so you'll see what's going on. All right, so when we get back, I'll show you this cooking, and then I'll show you how I'm going to start off my dough and knead it and so on and so forth. See you back here in a bit. Okay, so when I told you I'm going to add some powdered seasoning, not much, some meat seasoning, a little oxtail seasoning to give it, you know, a little extra flavor. And of course, you know, I'm not going to be using anything other than my Himalayan pink salt. I'm all out of all-purpose seasoning, so I guess we'll have to do without that today. But that constitutes the powdered seasoning that I'm going to add to the meat. Alright guys, so the ground beef is on the fire right now, and I forgot to let you know that you can put a few seeds of allspice, or what they call pimento, in the meat. I always love to add that to my meat. Just use your own judgment, see how much you want. And then guess what, I added some browning for color, and a couple sprigs of thyme too. So this here has in the seasoning, the ground beef, and it's gonna be cooking for a while, because you first of all you want to make sure that the filling is properly cooked and it has a nice flavor you want, and the texture is also important. So this is going to be cooking there for a while, and I'll give you an update every now and then on its progress. So I decided to to fill some of the meatloaf with not with turnip greens instead of meat. So I'm making turnip greens loaves. And you can use callaloo or cabbage, any vegetable. So what I'm doing here is just frying up some seasoning, a tomato, some scallion, some onion, piece of thyme. Fry that up. Let it fry for a while. I will add the turnip greens. And this is what it looks like. You just buy a bunch of turnip greens, wash them properly, cut them up, and steam it just like you would some callaloo or some cabbage. So right now the seasoning is being fried up nicely. And then once that fries up properly, now I just add the turnip greens. And so I'm going to fill some of the loaves with turnip greens and some with ground beef. Alright, so I just added the greens to the seasoning and I'm stirring it up really well. Stirring up real well. If you can see that real close. Okay. I'm going to cover it now and let it steam. And once it's cool and my dough is ready to go, I'm going to roll out my dough and fill it up with some greens, turnip greens. And again, you can use any vegetable you want. Just cook up the vegetable real nice. And then handle your dough, fill it up, put it to bake. So I will show you how that goes in a little bit. Now in the meantime, this is the filling. This is the ground meat. It looks kind of light in color on camera, but it's actually a lot darker than it really looks right now. Added a little brown into it to bring it up, and of course I added some thyme, which I didn't have previously, but I got some. And this is more or less the consistency we're looking for. Added some breadcrumbs to it as well, and just let it boil down slowly. And so we're pretty much ready. This filling is pretty much ready. See? That's the consistency we're looking for. Okay, so now we're about to work on the crust of the meatloaf, or the, I want to say, meat ring. Alright, so actually before I turned on the camera, I did put a teaspoon of salt in 3 cups of flour. So that's 3 cups of flour and 1 teaspoon of salt. Here I have a cup of, it's supposed to be whole milk, but because I don't do dairy really, this is oat milk. Okay, so it's 1 cup of oat milk, and I'm about to put a 1/4 cup. It's supposed to be butter, but I am avoiding the dairy as much as possible, so it's gonna be a 1/4 cup of Earth Balance butter substitute. Okay, and I'm just judging it, telling myself that's a quarter cup. And truth of the matter is, it's just bread dough. Don't matter if it's a little more or a little less than what the recipe calls for. Just don't go too much overboard or underboard for that matter. All right, so that's the butter substitute and the milk together. I did warm the milk a little bit, but I'm going to warm it some more so the butter melts, because I'm going to be adding the yeast to this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and heat this up just a little bit in the microwave. All right, this is the warm milk and the butter substitute, and here I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. 1, 2, and then I'm going to stir this some, and then I'm going to add the yeast. Put the yeast in this now. It's supposed to rise to a point, and then you add it to the flour. So I'm supposed to add 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. So this is one teaspoon. 1, 2, and let's do a half. Actually, it's a half a teaspoon right here. There you go. All right, so that's the milk, the butter, the sugar, and the yeast. Now the yeast is going to sit there for a little while in the warm milk and then start rising. Once it rises up to a point, it's going to be time to add the mixture to the flour. Okay, so this mixture with the yeast, the sugar, the milk, the butter, I had it sit for about 5 minutes, and this is what it looks like now. It's foamy, which means the yeast is rising. What I'm going to do now is add 1 egg to this mixture. Would have been a better idea to beat the egg first, but I mean, no worries. So now I'm going to add the flour mixture to it. Actually, the flour. Okay. If you have a mixer, an electronic mixer, that's good, but if you don't, that's fine too. The good old spatula and your hands are good enough. So you want to mix it together so it comes together. And if it's too soft, you can add a little bit more flour. If it's too well, it's more than likely, it's more likely to be too soft than too dry. Okay, so get all that together. So mix it together, and then we're going to leave it in here for what we call the first rise. See, let me put this spatula aside and get a feel of it, of the batter, or the dough rather. There you go. I'm going to leave this, cover this for another 3 minutes or so, and let it rise a little bit, and then we start the kneading process. Now it's going through the first rising, Okay, so now I'm about to knead the dough. So I'm going to just flour the surface lightly, make sure the surface is clean. Flour the surface lightly and just kind of punch the dough in and knead. Yeah, I'm not gonna knead it too much, just enough to bring out the gluten that's needed for proper rising, I guess. All right, so leave it here. And we're gonna leave it here for about 2 hours until it's double in size. I mean, you can cover it, you don't have to, but it should be in a fairly warm place. So that's what the dough looks like, nice and smooth. Give it a couple hours, and then once it's double in size, you're ready to put your filling into your dough and bake it. Okay, here's the dough after rising for about an hour and a half. It has indeed doubled in size. So I'm just going to let it rise for a little while longer, maybe about another 10-15 minutes. And then I'll start to roll out and fill my loaves with ground beef and turnip greens. See you back when I start that process. Alright guys, the dough rose more than double its size, and I just punched it down. So I'm about to go ahead and start rolling out the loaves now. I have a handy dandy rolling pin. actually we want to make it kind of rectangular. So I'm about to make 2 meatloaves out of this, so I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of take the spoon and drop some filling here. Sometimes just pull that out without. And then I'm gonna drop another one over here. Alright. And just fold it over like so. Let's use a knife. Cut it. Okay. Let's pinch it around. And shape it up. Like so. And you have it in the shape of a patty. Take a fork if you want to. Or if you can take the fork and kind of shape it on like so. Pinch it together. Right? You could even just use the handle of the fork and do it too if you want wider spaces in between the pinches. See what I mean? But you just want to make sure that this is sealed. Right here is sealed nicely and it doesn't open up. And a good way to ensure it doesn't open up is to kind of poke some air holes in the top, so that when the heat takes it, it has excess heat can escape through those holes. But just make sure it's nicely sealed around the edge. And there you have a meatloaf. See, the shape of a patty. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put this on pan. There you go. So you have it. 1 meatloaf ready. And then We seal the other one. So seal it nicely. I don't want it escaping. You can take your knife again and shape up. Take off the excess dough. You can roll that again. Make sure it's nice and sealed. And then you go around the edges. Go around the edges. You can use the teeth of the fork. You can use the handle of the fork. It really does not matter. And then be sure to put in your ear holes at the top. Right? So your pie doesn't burst open where you don't want it to burst, right? There's another meatloaf ready for the pan. And let's place it here. So we want to give it enough space to rise as well. Oh, you don't want it bursting open and leaking out the meat. So if you see it look like it's about to burst, squeeze it together. And redefine your little design. See? Yeah. There you go. 2 meatloaves ready. We go ahead. We're going to do the same thing with this dough. Kind of make it in a rectangular shape. Add this excess to the new one and get to rolling. You can re-sprinkle some powder. Re-sprinkle some flour so it doesn't stick. And get busy. See? Roll out. And you make as many as your dough can make. Kind of put a little wetness here so that when I fold the dough it will stick better. That's just my little method. You don't have to do this. Yeah. Alright, so now I fold and just kind of seal it in between and at the ends. Seal it in between and at the ends. See? damp my fingers again and kind of seal it. And then what I'll do is cut off the excess dough at the end after I separate. So I got 3 loaves out of this. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and trim the edges. And please know that these will not go to waste. I will roll this up to make some more later. Alright, so that's 1. That's 2. And that's 3. So let's make some space to make this one perfect. Again. Press out, and I'm somewhat of a neat freak, so I always go around and kind of, you know, neat it up a little bit. And then I'll take my fork. And I will pinch the edges to keep them together and give it that little design. And of course, as always, you have to punch your ear holes. You don't want to your dough opening up where it shouldn't be opening up. And never mind me with the neat freak behavior. And so here are the ones that have already been made. Never mind the mess around. It's just I don't get to put stuff back immediately, but there. Oh, guess what? I'm going to have to mark the turnip green loaves differently. So I'm just going to put an extra set of ear holes there. That way I know those are the turnip greens. How is it looking so far, people? I had this extra dough which I rolled into a rectangular shape and just dropped some of the filling along and just fold it over and then curl it around to make both ends meet right here to make a little ring. And all I'm going to do is like snip a little at the top so that when it rises or when it cooks, it won't burst anywhere I don't want it to burst. So this is filled with meat. This is how you would make a tea ring or a coffee ring if you were making that kind of pastry, but you kind of cut it some more on the edge and then so it would open up. But because I don't want the meat, oh, pinched it wrong right there, because I don't want the meat to be falling out, that's why I snipped it at the top rather than to the sides. So let's see how this little meat ring turns out too. I'm so excited. Everything is out of the oven now and I'm about to glaze them so they look nice and shiny. And again, this is butter substitute I'm using to glaze them all. It still has the flour all over them. Okay, glaze them, they look nice and shiny and ready to be enjoyed. Okay, see if you can get a closer look. Okay, let's These ones are a little browner. They were at the bottom of the oven. I probably should have switched. Hold on, let's get you over here. Switch them all, you know, put the bottom ones at the top and the top ones at the bottom after a little while. But that's okay. They're still nice and golden brown. And this is my little meat ring. Let's go ahead and get that all glazed up. There you go. Closer look. And guess what? I'm going to go ahead and cut. I'm going to cut open one of the vegetable loaves, and one of the meat loaves. All right. So right here is a meatloaf. I think not a meatloaf, one of the vegetable loaves right here. I'm gonna cut this small one so you can see what it looks like on the inside. How do I know this is it? Because I marked it separate, differently from the markings on the top, different from the meatloaf. See, it looks good, guys. Man, tastes good too. This is delicious. So that's it. Turnip green loaf. Let's try cutting all the meat loaves now. I'm gonna go ahead. Yum yum. I don't cut this one since it's kind of open up early. Let's go ahead and cut this one and let you see what it looks like on the inside. Woo, juicy! Look at that. Oh, girl. Yum yum. Ladies and gentlemen, it's delicious. I'm gonna leave the recipe in the description and you guys can try it out.